Hi guys. Okay, so last week you became excellent perspective drawing artists. You learned how to connect shapes to the vanishing point and create that illusion of depth using perspective drawing techniques. And what you were drawing last week kind of looked a little bit like an outside view, right? Like a landscape or a city, because we have the horizon line and kind of the idea of things being up in the air or sitting on the ground. But if you're trying to draw an interior space, you have to do things a little differently. There are several things that are the same. We're still going to have a vanishing point. We're still going to use a ruler or some straight edge to connect to our vanishing point. And we're also going to be using those parallel lines pretty often. We're going to keep an eye on our vertical and horizontal lines when we really need those. So what we're going to do today is look at the steps to drawing a room or an interior space using one-point perspective. So as you can see, I have a few supplies. I have my paper. I'm going to use a ruler. I have a couple different rulers depending on how long of a drawing I need to draw with that line. If you don't have a ruler, I'm going to go ahead and remind you that it's not really about measuring. So if you have a folder or even just another piece of paper that you can kind of fold in half and in half again, it'll give you a nice kind of straight edge that you can draw alongside with your pencil. That would still work because you can still connect that to your vanishing point. You can still draw your lines using a folded piece of paper. So no excuses. Gonna get this done, okay? So got my pencil ready. Got an extra eraser just in case. But we're gonna start drawing an interior space. As you can see up here on this, it says step one, we're gonna draw the back wall. And usually when you're looking at a room, the back wall most resembles a rectangle, right? So let's go ahead and draw a rectangle first. We're just gonna put it somewhere in here. I'm gonna go ahead and make mine, I don't know, maybe about 5 inches on the width. I'm gonna use the flat edge of this ruler to try and make a nice 90-degree line here. I'll go ahead and make it 3 inches tall. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on this side also. We keep those angles 90 degrees. Pretty close, I did there, 5 inches across. So now I have a rectangle in my blank space here, and that's going to become my back wall of the room. Next step, it says connect corners with an X. So in this rectangle I just drew, I'm going to connect the corners. I'm going to keep this pretty light, drawing a little darker so you can see it for sure on the video. But you want to draw lightly because a lot of what we're drawing is going to be erased. So make sure you're just gliding that pencil along in case you do need to erase some of these lines later. All right, so in this center of the X, that's our new vanishing point right there. Remember, we don't want that to be a huge spot. You just want it to be a small speck that we are lining things up to. Then you can go ahead and continue your X. I think that's step 2. Yep, extend the X to make the floor, ceiling, and the left and right walls. So I'm going to line up my ruler so it reaches out this way a little further. And I'm going to just extend that from that corner out this way. And do that on all of them. And then I can use my eraser to just take away these lines inside my back wall so that it's just a nice smooth back wall. And we should, if we kind of view it correctly, we should be seeing a ceiling, a floor, a left wall, and a right wall. Okay? Step 3, we're going to add a door. And to add a door, we're going to make a vertical line on this side. Now, when you are thinking about a door I need you to think about how high up on the wall that door really goes. How close to a ceiling does it get? It doesn't go way up here. It's also not way down here, right? We want to maybe pick a height where there's still a little bit of ceiling above it, but it's also tall enough that it doesn't look like a dog door. Try to keep that line pretty vertical. I think mine's a little bit off, but I want it to be pretty parallel with the edge of my paper. So I think I can try that again. I'm being picky. So let's see if I can make this nice and parallel. My ruler is parallel with the edge of my paper. And we'll tape it up to about here this time. That looks a little more straight. I don't want the wall to look like it's not straight with the door. Okay, so we're going to now take the top of this door. On this line we just drew, we're going to connect it to our vanishing point. I'm just going to draw a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and draw the whole thing. I'm just going to draw a little bit of a line like that. Should look like a funny number 7 right now on your paper. Now I'm going to finish off the door with another parallel line. So remember, with our boxes, you can line up your ruler and slide it over. That's how we did that on the cubes you were drawing last week. And now I have the outline of a doorway. I'll get rid of this bottom here, where the line kind of could be a passageway through instead, right? An interruption to the line. So that's going to be the outline of a door. A lot of doors, a lot of architecture, they have molding or trim work around the door. So I'm just going to add a few more parallel lines. This one needs to line up for a vanishing point because it's kind of going along the wall. Let's see, I'm just going to make sure I can see what it's doing here. I'm just adding a little trim work there. Now, here's where some people who are a little more advanced could take the next step. Add a horizontal line right here. This is going to show the thickness of the wall. How thick is the wall that this door is in? And then do another little horizontal line up here. It's a little tricky. Just use the top of the paper or the bottom of the paper. Make sure it's parallel with the top or the bottom of the paper. Then it'll be horizontal. And then I'm going to connect these. I know you can't see it, but take a second. Looks like a funny rectangle sticking off the side there. But if I line this up just right to my vanishing point, I will create the top of that doorway and this inside edge of the doorway, and it looks like it's a thickness of the wall now. Okay, we added a door. You can pause those steps and redo it as slowly as you need to. Now we're going to step 4, add some windows, okay? So the windows, we're going to go ahead and draw the top line of our window. It has to connect to the vanishing point. I'm just going to go ahead and draw a light line all the way along that wall. And then I'm going to do the bottom of the window. I got to think, how tall do I want those windows to be? Big picture windows, tiny little, basement-sized windows. I think I'm going to make mine a little bigger because I want some space to do the details. So I'm just going to lightly draw the bottom. And now I'm going to use vertical lines to decide where they're going. I'm going to finish them off, like start and stop them here. So I got this one. Okay, so I've got the first one right there. Get rid of this line. Starting to see it yet? I'll put a little space between them. So I have a pair of windows here. Now I want this one to look like it's a little bigger because it's coming closer to us. In perspective drawing, that's an important reality to remember. We want things that are closer to be a little bigger. So this one might be a little bit wider. Technically, it's just because the picture is closer to us on that side. Okay, so now I can do the same thing I did over here. I can add some trim work around it if I want to. It'd be a little tricky in between. Should have maybe giving it more space. I can make it work, maybe. Let's just leave the middle like that. Okay, guys, that sounds good. Leave the middle like that, but we can go like this, up and around. Remember, the top has to line up to the vanishing point because it's moving inside the wall. It's following the wall perspective. So we need that angle there. And I'm going to do that with the bottom of the window too. I'm lining it up to the vanishing point. And then I'll finish off this side with a nice parallel line here. That spot that I missed. Okay, remember our door and how we added the thickness of the wall? We're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to add a little horizontal line right here. So again, I'm going to kind of look at the top of the paper and the bottom of the paper, and I'm going to make sure my ruler looks pretty level there. A little horizontal line there, and then one here. Go ahead and make the rectangle. Then what did I do? I had to line up this part to the vanishing point. So I'm going to do that with the top of my window. It's very close to the top of the window, and that's okay. There we go. And line this one up. And I don't know if you can tell, but it looks like there's a thickness to the window. Now I could also add, you know, that part in the window where the window is divided in half. That has to line up to the vanishing point too. So maybe I've got a little divider in my window right here, right? And right up inside it. Maybe that's like the top of the window and then the bottom half of the window. Maybe you want to add the full cross pieces, because some windows have that nice 4-pane design to them, 4 panes of glass, right? Could add that in there too, right? Just little details. So I would do that to my second window also. So if I'll just go through this real quick. It's a little smaller in the back because it's farther away. So it gets a little tricky. Remember I said I wanted to draw my windows big so I could do the details. That's kind of what I meant. It's hard to draw details when the space is so small. So there's that. The last thing, I'll leave this window blank and maybe come back to that later when I've got a little more time. The last step that I want you to be trying is how we can add some floor patterns, either in a plank, like wood planks pattern, or in a tile pattern. So I'm going to show you that a couple of ways, okay? And the first one I'm going to show you is the wood planks. Now we are going to need to try and divide this up a little evenly. If you don't have a ruler, just do your best to try and keep the spaces even. I'm going to use these 1/4 inch marks because I think for wood planks that looks better. If they are too far apart, it looks too big. So I would go ahead and think about whether or not you want to do planks or tiles. So every 1/4 inch on these, right? These are the 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. I'm going to line each one of these up to the vanishing point. I'll start on this side so you can see my lines better. But every single one of these marks is going to line up to the vanishing point. I am not going to draw on the back wall. I'm just going to start here. And I'm just going to lightly put my plank lines on this floor. So every time I'm double checking that my ruler is touching here and the vanishing point, I want it to slip and slide. This part of the perspective illusion really pays off when you take your time to do it right. You'll notice that the lines start diagonal and they start to rotate more vertically. It's because we are lining it up to the vanishing point every time and we're rotating. I've done this many times, so I can go a little faster. I want you to make sure you're taking your time. The ones in the middle also seem a little wider, a little further apart. And as they get closer to us in the picture, they seem to widen up, right? That's the angle of perspective. That's what it does sometimes with lines. So this would be your plank flooring, and then you use some careful horizontal lines. You could break up the pattern by placing some random ends to your wood flooring, right, to make it look like 4 boards or 4 planks, right? But it's very important that you keep it horizontal on these lines. If you don't, it could look like this. And this starts to make the floor look very strange, almost like a funhouse floor, right? If you end up with one going the wrong direction, it looks like a bad cut or a floor that's not laying very level. All right, now I'm going to show you the tiles, but I'm going to show you the tiles on the roof or the ceiling, okay? So hang in there for just a second. I'm going to turn your world upside down. Okay, so same thing. This time I'm going to just do inch marks though, because I do want those tiles, or half-inch marks you could do too, but I do want these to look more like square tiles. And so I'm going to make my marks every inch, and that stops there because I did a nice 5-inch back wall. So I can line these up to my vanishing point, just the same as before. And now what I need to do is draw some horizontal lines that gradually get further and further down or further and further apart, spacing them wider as they go. To help with that, to make sure I get them evenly placed, a lot of artists and designers will suggest using a diagonal line. So from one corner to the next, line up your ruler. I'm just going to use the corner of the back wall and the corner of my paper. And to save myself some time with erasing, I'm just going to put a little mark instead of drawing a whole line. I'm just going to put a little mark where it crosses with my lines that I just drew. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. And so now with neat, careful horizontal lines, I'm going to draw across. And the spacing should just gradually get a little bit further apart to help with that illusion of it being a tile pattern in perspective drawing. I could just keep my ruler still, goodness. Do you see? Isn't that super? I'm such a dork sometimes. Anyway, that's a tile pattern. So you can see how you can use that on the floor, right? And actually, it's not bad for a ceiling. I've seen people with ceiling tiles on their ceilings, and I think we have that at our school, so it makes sense. So I hope that you can use this video to go back through using what you know now about perspective drawing and the vanishing point. If we get the opportunity to continue after spring break, you can expect that we'll do a little bit more perspective drawing techniques. So practice this. Take a good, clear picture of what you accomplish and turn it in for me. All right. I hope you guys have a good week. I'll talk to you later.